Okay, so let's get this out of the way. I think Prime Empire is way better than Master of the Mountain as a Ninjago season, and I see that most people think this is one of the best seasons. It's kind of overrated in my opinion, and you can like it if you want. I don't care, but I personally am not a big fan of it as opposed to Prime Empire. That is one of my favorite seasons of all time. So buckle up, because this is why Prime Empire is better than Master of the Mountain. The characters. So, I'm gonna start off with things I like about Master of the Mountain, because I think Master of the Mountain impersonated the ninja just a little bit better than Prime Empire, since they all have distinct personalities and all have something to do. Like Kai, Zane, and Lloyd, I think they're all good. But then Cole, I have a little bit of mixed feelings. Then Jay's terrible and Nia also terrible. So let's talk about them. Okay, so Kai is finally on character after the disaster that season 11 and season 12 was okay. And he kind of got to be the chancellor of the geckos. That didn't really matter, because every time there was a real decision, it came back to the other chancellor, and that's fine because I like Kai this season. Even though he didn't have any development, he was fun to watch, and same with Zane. He was just kind of there, and he was fun, and Lloyd, more of a background character, but he made sense and he was in character at least. So Cole, he's kind of a weird case. He has like this very sentimental, very powerful flashback scene with his mom.
I don't want you to be sick anymore, Mom.
I know, but we don't always get what we want, do we?
But then they have to have Spinjitzu birds. That is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. They just had it to sell toys. And it's just so annoying. And then the plot is I can't have my superpower. Oh no, I'm sad. I swear, Spinjitzu Burst is the freaking worst thing that ever happened to Ninja. It's just the most confusing thing I've ever seen. Like, do the other ninja have it too? And if so, how the hell do they get it? And if not, why is Cole so special that only he can get that special Spinjitzu power? And isn't that the same as for the... I can talk. Isn't that the same as Forbidden Spinjitzu, just a better form of Spinjitzu? Explain yourself, Tommy Andresen. This doesn't make any sense. And that's how we get to the good season, the one that makes sense. And for some reason, Ninjago always does this thing where it's like, why didn't the ninja know about Moro or Dione or the Time Twins? And I guess that's not that big of a deal, but this is one of the only seasons that makes sense in that way. Because why the hell would Sensei Wu know about Prime Empire? And the ninja did know about it, they just didn't know enough information, because it's just a cancelled game and that happens all the time. The press just kept it confidential, which is something that happens in the real world. And then I came to a conclusion. So, if you think about it, the concept of making a video game season is actually really good, because they don't have to explain the things all the time, because they can just use the audience's knowledge from video games. That can imply a lot of things. So, implying that Milton Dyer is Unagami makes us think that he's a game creator, so he can make whatever he wants, so it's more of a menace. And then Player 7, for example, we already know about NPCs and how they work, so they don't have to explain everything. Which great character, by the way. Those 4 Okino episodes are my top all-time favorite for Ninjago. And that's really saying a lot, since we already have 14 seasons with a 15th on its way. And that's kind of a consistent theme through all this season, where Most of the main characters are better than the ninja, and they can just conclude their story in one season or 4 episodes like okay. They can just conclude their arc perfectly and then move on to the next thing without to dragging anything. And oh god, don't even get me started on Unagami. He's like the best villain, one of the best. He's like my top 5 villain of Ninjago. He's created as a video game and he serves all his purpose. He does everything right, all the best that he can, and he's just dumped out because I don't know. Supposedly his father just dumps him out and he doesn't know why. He's just a dumb video game. He doesn't understand the real world and real emotions. But he does have real emotions. So he goes on an existential crisis and he tries to understand what's going on. And never at any point he acknowledges that what he's doing is evil. And I also love how he has cool parallels with Jay and how his arc isn't completed by just fighting. Instead, he has a heart to heart conversation with his father. And then he's like a Thanos level villain to me, just one of the best. And then it comes this piece of garbage. I was gonna say garbage all along. So he's like one of the worst villains of Ninjago, like overlord levels of terrible. He's just one of those black and white villains that doesn't really have a personality. At least Chen, he doesn't have any motivation, but he does have a cool personality. This is nothing. It's a nothing villain. He's just an obstacle in Cole's way, and not a very good one. He's also one of the weakest villains, so there's not a lot of tension. And so, talking about tension, one of people's biggest complaints with Prime Empire is that they don't really have a lot of tension because they're inside a video game, not a lot can happen, and that's straight up not true. Like, the ninja are never gonna die for real. Do you really want another fake death? Because I don't. The whole tension of the season is built around the part for Unagami to finally go home to the real world. That also exceptionally ties into the other episode, the Zane and Pixel episode. That's also a really good episode with a lot of tension. And we all know if he comes to the real world, he's gonna be unstoppable. Which he was if it wasn't for Milton Dyer trying to talk him out of destroying Ninjago, he probably would have won. A good, emotional, threatening villain as opposed to this freaking buffoon of a plot device because that's what he is. He's not a character, he's a plot device. And he also very, very stupid. He just leaves the gateway to his underground dungeon out in the open. Yet doesn't even lock it up, not even a single guard. And the writers just expect me to believe that Cole and Vanny are the first ones to get there. I mean, probably anyone could have gotten there if they wanted, like a toddler. And also, not that it ruins the season, but if you know there are more monsters and geckos running around the dungeon, why don't you just get them for more work? It's not like they're very resistant creatures, you could very easily get him to talk. Before this, I thought the only monsters and geckos were the school sorcerers prisoners, because that's the only way it makes sense. But this season doesn't really have the luxury of making sense. Speaking of that, you, Jay, F you indeed. So you're telling me that this man's queen just starts flirting with him in front of his wife and he's just okay with it. He just keeps smiling and going on, and he also flirts back, and you'd expect that he's only doing it so he can get the respect of the queen. But that obviously doesn't work because Nia starts fighting, which by that point I was just so confused. So if the man's queen wins, she just gets with Jay, and if Nia wins, she is now the queen of the masses. Yeah, that makes total sense. Just giving up the crown because she wants some random J guy that she doesn't even know. And also, Nia's known Jay for 10 years. They're freaking married, and then they don't even know each other. But this random man's queen just wants to marry him for some reason. We don't know. Jay doesn't have a choice. He doesn't do anything to stop it. This is worse than the love triangle. And in the final of the season, when they're finally out of the dungeon, he finally has the chance to tell her off, and he just kisses her hand. Do you not understand why Jay's the worst in this season? This is just the worst episode of the whole series. Worse than the season 11 premiere. And so, is there any episode of this season that is good from beginning to end? Yes, yes, there is. At first, I thought the Lowly episode just dragged the pacing, and it still does, but upon rewatch, this is my favorite episode of this season. I just love when they focus on the side characters. That is the case for season 12. Plus, this is the only episode that makes good use of the dungeon setting. So I love Prime Empire. It's just fun, well written, well designed, and has good characters. And that's the best part when they focus on the side characters, because the writers of these seasons don't know how to write the ninja quite yet. Though I think Seabound might change that. But as opposed to Master of the Mountain, which has a very boring villain and very boring side characters, besides the Upley, I like them, except they're not as good as season 12. That's just the all-time best, but the Upley are also fun. Half of the ninja are not very well written, and the good ones are just fun at best. I really wanted to like this season, but I just can't. And again, if you like it, that's good for you. Again, this is just my opinion. And I'm not gonna say you're dumb for liking this season, but I'm just gonna talk about one more thing before I wrap up this video. When I see that people praise this season for its ending, I'm like, what are you talking about? Cole just has these blades in the finale, and for some reason he thinks they're magic. Just has them and then starts fighting with the plot device. But then he's losing, and then he's like, wait, it's her. And then plot device is like, what are you talking about? It's my mom. She defeated the Griefbringer. Yeah, I know that stuff, you brain dead moron. Yeah, but you're not getting it. What am I not getting? She did defeat the Griefbringer. Yeah, but she didn't use her swords though. Oh, okay. And then he goes just Super Saiyan and uses Spinjitzu bars to defeat him. This is what I like to call the epiphany reveal, where a character just finds about one little detail and then all the problems are solved. This is like the Steven Universe movie reveal, except that was just one of the multi plot points, while this is supposed to be the big climax of the Master of the Mountain season. This is like the time when Zane just hears the word protect, and then he starts forgets that he's the Ice Emperor. He just at least that's based on something. It was really stupid, and like, didn't he hear the word protect in like 80 years? But at least that was based on something. While in Master of the Mountain, Cole just pulls that information out of his ass. Also, I thought they were setting up Cole to be a leader in the season because of one episode with the lava monster, but then they just forget about it. That was actually a pretty neat moment that I would have loved if they paid off. But no, Cole just fights alone in the finale. This is not the worst season of Ninjago. It just makes me annoyed to know that the only season for Cole that we got didn't have any development at all, while Prime Empire knew what they were doing, knew their boundaries, and just ran with it. They knew they couldn't write the ninja, so instead they wrote amazing side characters and an amazing villain. But yeah, it's just my opinion, and if you like the video, please subscribe and leave a like, and you can leave a comment down below if you like it, and just be civil, please. I know I might have pissed a lot of people off, but I would like to engage in a civil discussion and hear your points. So that's it, hope you liked it, and Michael out!